Hi everybody, it's Gina from BrownieKnits. Welcome back. This is episode 3 of the BrownieKnits podcast. And I don't know what today is. It's a Friday. But this podcast will go live on November 10th of 2014. So if you are new to the podcast, welcome. And if you're returning, thanks for coming back. I'm BrownieKnits on Revelry and on Instagram. You can also check me out, BrownieKnits.com. Has all the other social media links there too. So, we have a lot to do in this episode, and unfortunately my iPad was not charged like I thought it was, so hopefully I have enough time to record to get everything in. So, I thought I'd start off explaining why I have these zebra poofs here, and why I'm going to be releasing this video on a Monday instead of on a Wednesday like I normally will be doing. November 10th is NET Awareness Day, and NET stands for Neuroendocrine Tumors. So on Monday, if you have any zebra print and want to wear zebra print, that is our ribbon for those of us who have neuroendocrine tumors, also called carcinoid tumors. So I thought I'd share a little bit about my story, not because I'm particularly comfortable doing that, because I'm not, but because it's super rare, which is one of the reasons why our ribbon is the zebra. Because they tell doctors, I don't know, they tell them like to think if you hear hoofs or footsteps or whatever it is, to think horses, not zebras. Think of the most common thing that might be wrong with a patient before you go to the rare things. And unfortunately, we're really rare. So throughout this episode, there will be little bits of information from the Carcinoid Organization and Foundation, just kind of giving you information about the tumors, because they are highly misdiagnosed. I believe it's, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's like 90% are misdiagnosed as irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease. And it takes on average 5 years before a patient is correctly diagnosed. And during that time, patients can really suffer quite a bit depending on where their tumor is located. And for me, I very much fit the mold of all those statistics, and it was over 5 years of going to the doctor complaining about abdominal pains, and I'd eat this and I'd get sick, or the next time I ate it I wouldn't get sick, but I'd get sick from something else. And the experiences got more frequent and more severe as the years went on. And I went in for ultrasounds. I probably had at least 5 CTs that I can think of, at least 4 MRIs and 3 ultrasounds. I went through several primary care physicians because I just wasn't happy with the level of care I was getting. I saw a gastroenterologist. I saw all of these people. So I really was trying to figure out what it was, because it was really debilitating, and it made a lot of changes have to occur in my life. And when you're getting sick that often and that unpredictable, you find out who really is there to support you. Who of your friends and family are really going to stand by you, and who's going to be like, roll their eyes and not believe you, or just not really be supportive. And so finally, after getting so sick in 2013, to the point where I really didn't leave my house very much, and spent a lot of days and nights sleeping on the bathroom floor, just writhing in pain, going through several medications that ended up making it worse because it wasn't what they thought the medications were intended for. I finally ended up in the emergency room, and they found the tumor, and it had actually grown through part of my small intestine, so I had to have it and the small intestine, part of the small intestine, removed. And really, I think that's probably why they were able to see it on the CT. So, and versus all the other scans before. So, doctors will say, "Oh, that's totally normal for what you have," which is, I understand why they say that, but it's also frustrating, because if you're somebody who's going through pain and you're searching out trying to figure out what's wrong with you, and you're being told you have something and none of those treatments are working, and it has something to do with your abdominal and belly, I would highly recommend just bringing up neuroendocrine tumors and carcinoids just to see, because there are specific tests that they can run, specific scans and some other blood and urinalysis tests that they can run to see if you have that. Unfortunately, mine wasn't caught early enough before it had gone to other places that couldn't be taken out, so I will have to live with this for the rest of my life. It's not like a typical cancer where you have chemo and go through chemo and radiation, although there is, if it gets into certain areas, there is a specific kind of radiation they can do. So, you know, I'm not in the pain every day, which is the really great thing. I really don't like my oncologist, so right now that's playing with, you know, what the next steps are right now. So I've decided to give myself the winter to just think about it and figure out what I want to do next. So the treatment for what I have is to monitor, and when they do finally see a new one, because just because they know they're in there, that doesn't make them any easier to see. When they would find it, if it's operable, then they would take it out. So that's what I'm looking at as time goes on. And I share this story, like I said, not particularly because I'm comfortable talking about it, because I'm really not, but because for 5 years I suffered not knowing what was wrong and just thinking there's something in there that shouldn't be, and being told no, there's not. And so I thought, you know, if this reaches one person who maybe knows somebody else and they can tell that somebody else, then and it's less than 5 years for them to get a diagnosis, that's fabulous. So in honor of Net Awareness Day, I have on my zebra socks and my zebra poofs, and I'm putting this little video out on Net Awareness Day. So there's a lot more to the story, but I'll leave it at that and then run the actual, you know, expert facts about net across the bottom of the screen. So, you know, if you're interested, you can learn more about that. And on the BrownieKnits Revelry board, I'll put up some links too. So I do have like a Carrying Bridge site that kind of goes a little more in detail. So if you're somebody who's experiencing symptoms and you want to like kind of compare it, you're welcome to look there. So now let's get on to knitting. That's why we're here, right? So this is my finished bandana. So this is the kit that I got when I had my little dinner party, and I got for the girls and one for myself. And it's 100% baby alpaca, and I loved knitting with it because the alpaca is so soft. And I'm a little bit more dressed up today than I normally would be to do a podcast, but we get to go to the symphony tonight with a couple of our friends. And so I thought, well, I'll wear my bandana to that tonight, because it'll probably be, not probably, it will be cold here tonight. Winter, our fall kind of leapt forward into winter here in Indiana. So anyway, this kit, I said it wrong last time, so I want to make sure I say it right this time. The kit is from Knit 1 Crochet 2, and according to Ravelry, the designer is Helene Rush, and it was really, really well written. It's probably an intermediate level pattern. It's really just slip stitches that give you this kind of detail. I would note you only get one color of each. It's Knit 1 Crochet 2's Covet yarn, and you will use every bit of the yarn that you get in the kit. I was actually pretty nervous that I was going to run out, and you're supposed to be able to do the last row and edge bind off in the gray, and I wasn't able to because I didn't have enough of the gray left. So, and it does say in the pattern, if you're running short on one, use the other. So I do think that they were aware of it and planned for that, so they did a good job there. But I really wanted it to be the gray, so as my bind off, and I didn't get to do that. But that's okay, I think it looks really cute. The other thing I would say is, before I blocked it, this really rolled, you know, like that a lot. So don't panic if that's what's happening while you're knitting it. When you block it, it comes right out and you get to see all that nice eyelet detail along the edge. So that was one finished project this time around. Another finished project that I had, I released my Windows of Light free crochet pattern last time, and I mentioned that I had made them in purple for Halloween and that I was going to make them in Christmas colors. So I went ahead and did that, and this is North Pole Marathon sock yarn from a long time ago. I honestly don't know if they still make it. They might, but I had it from, I mean, it might be 5 years old. It was at least 3 or 4. But I thought it turned out really cute, and it's got a lot of sparkle in it. There you can see the sparkle. And my Christmas tree ornaments, which hopefully in a future podcast I'll record in front of the tree. I'm a little bit ornament crazy. But anyway, everything is decorated in creams and burgundies and gold and silver. So I thought that would go really pretty with my Christmas tree. So I crocheted those up. And that's all I have finished this time that I can show. I finally was able to wrap up a lot of editing and test knitting and test crocheting projects. So I'm always so thankful to have the work. I really love that I get to work in the industry. But I'm also really grateful when I get it wrapped up, because then I can cast on things that I want to either design or just knit or crochet for fun. So I've been doing a lot of casting on or planning things that I want to cast on. And one of those things, I had just casted on this sock last time that we saw each other on the podcast. And I finished the first sock. And this is one of the Opal Sweet and Spicy, and it's the honey colorway. And I just thought it turned out so cute. I really love the colors in this one. I have teeny tiny feet, so socks go pretty fast for me, unless I'm knitting them for my husband, and he has really long feet, so they take a really long time. I didn't really follow a written pattern for this. I did my own thing. Usually when I make socks for myself, I'll follow any of the vanilla sock patterns that are out there that are 64 stitches, and I just go with that. Well, unlike the rest of my body's really, we'll call fluffy, but my wrists and my fingers and my ankles and feet are really tiny. They're not in proportion to the rest of my body. I wish my body was in proportion to them. But anyway, because my feet are so little, I actually dropped down to 60 stitches and then did my own counts and did, you know, your normal, like, actually did a stockinette heel because I'm not really hard on my socks, so I didn't feel like I needed to do the slip stitch heel or anything like that, and just came down into the gusset. So I'm almost done the second sock. I was working on it last night at the designer meet and greet at the Village Yarn Shop. Hi ladies, it was nice to meet some new people and then to see a lot of familiar faces, so it was really good to catch up with everybody. And I was so excited while I was there knitting that I leapfrogged from my heel flap straight into my gusset and had to pull back and turn my heel, otherwise I don't think they would have fit very well. And just to show that knitters have humor, as you know we do, because you're watching this, so you know we do. I really like the Big Lebowski, so I have my little Due to Bides stitch markers. I have the as well, but I only needed 2, so I have Due to Bides. So that's a funny movie. So that is one project that should be done either tonight or tomorrow morning. It really only needs about another hour and a half of knitting to wrap that one up. And then last night was our first IU basketball game of the season. It was an exhibition game, and I was really excited for this podcast to have a Hoosier Out and About segment that was going to be focused on the Hoosier Indiana University basketball team, because they had a what do they call it, haunted hall of Hoosiers, or hoops, haunted hall of hoops, the day after Halloween. It was open practice and scrimmage, and kids could come in costume and get signatures from the players and get to do some trick-or-treating there in the lobby and walk around in their costumes and stuff. And so my husband and I put on our IU gear, which I forced him to wear. And excuse that dog, I had to open the windows because I'm in alpaca and I'm a little hot. Anyway, so I was really excited. You know, I made him put on some Hoosier gear even though he's not an IU alum. And we drove down to Bloomington. As we were driving down, I got a news alert that 2 of our players had been involved in an accident very early that morning. And unfortunately, it was an alcohol-related accident, and they were both underage. And one of them was pretty seriously injured. So the open scrimmage, or open practice and scrimmage, was called off. And, you know, of course, your first thoughts go to, you know, you want the life and death situation to be okay. You want him to be okay, not have any lasting effects. But this is the latest thing, not even the latest thing, something a couple days after that, when they were, our coach was announcing suspensions for one of the players that was involved in the accident that wasn't injured. He was suspended for 4 games. He also announced suspensions for 2 other players for drug tests for 4 games. And that was on top of some earlier arrests last spring of players. And it's just so embarrassing and disappointing, because the IU fans are called Hoosier Nation. And if you're a member of Hoosier Nation, you really love them hard and support them no matter what. And trust me, in the last decade and a half, it's been very hard, because there's not been a long winning streak in there. When I was at IU, I was lucky enough to be there during kind of the basketball heyday, and we, you know, were really a great elite program at that time, and it was so much fun to be there and during that time. And I just really wish that the boys on the team now would act more like men and less like boys, and get their act together and kind of appreciate the positions that they're in and the amount of people, strangers that don't know them, that really support them. And I'm not saying, not delusional. I was a college student. I made some colossally bad decisions. I drank when I wasn't of age, but I never got behind the wheel of a car. And I think that's totally inexcusable for them to do that. And I can't imagine being out and doing that kind of stuff and then having to be in front of a huge university full, or a stadium full of people playing a few hours later. So anyway, I was really excited to share that with you guys, and instead I get to share this horrible story. So I'm hoping that they bounce back, and in those hopes, I started my knit-along socks that will reflect their win and loss record. So I figured out that I need 138 rows per sock, not counting the heel, to do socks for me. So that worked out to be about 8 rows a game. So when they win, I will use this crimson color. And when they lose, I'll do my cream. Now, I also wanted to explain, because I have a lot of viewers, which is very exciting, that are from outside the United States. And if you're in the United States, you probably, unfortunately, we made the national news with all of this happening. So you probably know what a Hoosier is, or have maybe run into one of us and said, what is that? But if you're outside of the United States, you might not know what Hoosier is. So Hoosier is Hoosier. And Hoosier is a person from Indiana, the state of Indiana. But it's also Indiana University's mascot, so to speak. We're the Hoosiers. Just like Purdue University. They're the Boilermakers. So then that brings up the next question that people will often ask is, what is a Hoosier? And there, are all these theories about where the word originated from, and you can look it up online and see all these crazy things. And I don't know that any of them are really plausible. The one I was always told growing up, and that I hear most frequent, is that, hopefully in the pioneer days, I hope we still don't sound like this, when you would knock, they'd say, "Who's there?" And it would run together into Hoosier. Hoosier. So that's supposedly where it came from. So anyway, there's my diatribe about our basketball team and my hope for our basketball team. So get it together, boys. Anyway, I'm really excited to make my socks. So that's my version of the Cracker Jack how I'm doing my socks. Then what did I have next? Oh, the other thing I've been working a lot on, and I can't show you, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, is the block blanket design. So in 2015, on the first Wednesday of each month, a podcast will come out, and the free block of the month will come out on Ravelry and on BrownieKnits.com. You'll need about 200 yards of a worsted weight to make each block. You could do it all in one color, or you could do a different color for each block, or half in one color and half in another. I am using Barocco Vintage, and then I'll probably do a second block blanket in Dream Color. So any worsted weight would work. I tend to like to use worsted superwashes for my blankets, but I don't always do that. Sometimes I don't. And the gauge is 4.5 stitches to an inch. So for most people, that's probably going to be a 7 or an 8 needle, depending on how tight or loose you knit. The blocks will be 12 by 12, 3 across and 4 in depth. And so as I've been designing those, I don't want to show them to you because I want the first of the month for you to get to see them for the first time. But I've been keeping them in this bag. And I got this bag from Etsy off of the FeltedFlowerShop, and I'll put that in the show notes. And the owner of FeltedFlowerShop is Heather, and I saw on Heather's Instagram that she had some plaid that she was getting ready to turn into project bags and flowers. And I said, "Ooh, can I have that one, the brown one with the reds and the blacks, and have you make it into a project bag?" And she said, "Absolutely." And she asked me how I even wanted it lined, and I said, "Well, I'm kind of a plain girl or polka dots." And she went with this brown, which I think really complements it nicely. And all of her bags come with her little FeltedFlowerShop label inside, and it's just so cute. So I've been keeping my block of the month designs in here as I go along. So it'll be with me until all 12 are completed, and then the other 12 are made for a test. So that's I just love her bags. And she has 2, this morning when I looked, she still had 2 plaid ones up there. They're just so cute. So they'd make great gifts for the holidays if you're looking for something to do. The other thing I've been working on is not knitting, and it's not crocheted. It's cross stitch. And I tend to like to cross stitch for some reason. When the weather turns cooler, I usually bring out my cross stitch. I'm not sure that you'll be able to see this all that well, but I saw this little sheep, this little one in the oval, and I thought he was so cute. And I really like the 4-panel one too, but the little one right here really kind of yelled out to me. So I got the materials actually to make both. I told you I was really into plaid right now. So I have started you can't tell what it is at all yet, but I started the little guy, and I'm making him on some natural linen, and the body is just a half stitch, and then his bow and face and stuff like that are full cross stitches. But supposedly the half stitch makes it look more woven, so the plaid will look actually woven. So I'm hoping that I can find some time, now that I'm caught up on other people's projects, to work on that a little bit, because I'd really like to have my little sheep done before Christmas, because I think that'd be cute to have out. And someday in a future podcast I'll have to feature the sheep. My brother always laughs at the guest room, because that's where I'm recording this. In the guest room I have a lot of my craft supplies stored, and it's decorated with sheep, so he stays in the sheep room when he comes up. And then I've started I've planned some new projects. And the one and only Christmas gift that I'm making this year is for Patrick, my husband. And I mentioned last time that I thought about ordering okay, I'm going to get this wrong, that's what I'm trying to think. The rock, paper, scissors, lizard spot colorway from Purl to make him socks for Christmas. And I showed it to him, and he said, I showed him the Superman one, and I said, which one? Oh, Superman. So I got the Superman colorway, and it really, really, really does look like the Superman colors. So they're actually a little bit more bright than they look on screen right now. So he will have Superman socks. He has really long feet, so I'm gonna do toe up afterthought heel, and that way if I need to do something for the heels because I'm out of yarn, I can figure out something that will sort of match, because I know it'll be a shock that I have a lot of red yarn, so I'm sure I could find a red that would do the job. And that's in a zebra bag. I'm really not a zebra girl, but I'm just, trying to get into this awareness thing. And then I decided that when we went to the movies the other day, we went to see St. Vincent, which has Bill Murray in it, and it was so cute. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really sweet movie, and laughed a lot, but it was also, a little tearjerker here and there if you're an emotional person. But I usually knit at the movies, because I don't know, I just like to do that, and I can knit in the dark, so why not do it? And I didn't have anything on the needles that I could just mindlessly knit. And I've been watching all these podcasts. I love the Little Bobbins podcast, if you haven't checked out Little Bobbins yet. And of course the Bakery Bears are fabulous. And A Knitter's Life I watch, of course. I gotta support Christina. And now I'm totally blanking. There were two other podcasts that I was watching where they were making Sockhead hats. And I have all this sock yarn, and there's no way I'm ever going to make it all into socks. And so I showed it to Patrick and said, would you wear one of these? And he said yes, and then he went and picked out which ball of yarn. And I don't know what happened to the label. I do not know what the yarn is, because there is no yarn label. So, but it's really cool. So I'm hoping that it knits up really neat. And I think this will be a fantastic, I'll get, even the ribbing I could do without looking really, but get past the ribbing, and then I'll have it to make in our movies that we go see this fall and winter, because that's usually when we go see a lot of movies, because it gets pretty nasty here. It gets really gray in Indiana in the winter. Right now it's really pretty because we still have all the colors of fall, and it's still pretty blue. But in the winter, it's just gray. And then it'll snow, and it'll look pretty for a few hours, and then it starts to get dirty snow, and I'm not a winter person, but I try to do some fun things to make winter pass along at a smoother pace for me. And I have a few other projects that I've pulled to start, but I won't show those now. I'll show them after I've actually started the projects. But I thought I'd share with you some of my blankets, because that's what I love to make, and that's why I'm going to do the block blanket along on the website and Ravelry and the podcast. So I thought I'd share my stack of blankets because now's the time of the year that they all get pulled out. And this one is a Neat Ripple is the name of the pattern. It's a free win on the Attic 24, ATTIC 24 blog. Lucy is a fantastic crocheter, has a real eye for color, and she has a Neat Ripple up on her, it's free, on her blog. And years ago I saw it, and I had all these leftover sock yarns, and some of them may be a little heavier, they might have been sport weight. And so I gathered them all and threw them in a basket, and then I just pulled them out and did whatever they would do. So you can see, like here, I didn't have quite enough of one to finish, so it just got something else picked up along with it. Some of them I had full skeins of and used the whole thing. And funny enough, this past year, Lucy decided to make another one of her ripples, and she made a coast ripple, and it came out so close to this. It's kind of funny, but you can see, I mean, mine was inspired by the ocean, as was hers. So you have the sand and then the ocean and the sky colors in there. So that was a fun one because that was a great stash buster and using up all the ends. Then I thought I'd show the very first blanket I ever did. I talked about that a little bit before, and I did this in a class with my best friend Carol, and make sure I show you the right side. So for this, I didn't know any better, and I really loved the Monos yarn, and which is not washable. So this gets eucalyptus, and every month I would go and we would do a new block, and this is how I learned how to knit. And some of the blocks, you know, are just different texture stitches, you know, just kind of some of your basics. And then we got into doing the cabling, which I absolutely loved doing. So this is really where I learned to do, you know, all the main stitches in knitting and combining things together, and right side, wrong side, learning how to fix mistakes and all that stuff. So this blanket gets a lot of use at this time of the year. They were, I believe that you can find a Monos book that has the patterns in it. I think it was from like a little booklet that they had at the time. So if you search the Monos website, I think you'd probably, or even in Ravelry, I think you could find the patterns. So that was a lot of fun to make. And then last, I can't remember, I think it was 2 years ago. It was when all the ombre stuff was really popular. And Carol said, oh, I'm going to make this alpaca blanket for my husband, and it's this ombre design, and I'll put the name of the pattern and location along the bottom here while I talk. And I said, oh, that's gorgeous, and I really loved the idea of it, but I didn't always, you know, we always make the same things, so I was like, oh. Well, then we happened to be going to see my family in Pennsylvania right around that time. Here comes the school bus. I told you I had the windows open, so that's the school bus dropping the kids in the neighborhood off. So we'll hear it come back here in a second. Anyway, so we went out to Pennsylvania to visit my family, and we happened upon the farmer's market in Gettysburg on the square, and this woman was selling, she has an alpaca farm, and she was selling yarn from some of her alpaca. And so I couldn't resist, and I bought some, Now, the blanket's supposed to be a lot wider than this, but, and here I'm going to stand up so you can see it. So it actually starts down here in this darkest, the darkest down here, and then goes in, and you gradually lighten up. Into, and the cream at the top is my absolute favorite. I used to know what the name of the alpaca was that one came from. I want to say it was Cindy, but I'm not really sure. But it's so soft, and this blanket, whenever I bring it out each fall, it has been at least 2 years, maybe 3, because there have been multiple falls where it comes out and everybody wants it. You know, if we have a guest over, that's the one that gets snatched. If we're sitting on the couch and watching TV, that's the one that we fight over. And usually the dogs end up fighting over it too. They really like to snuggle in. If I can't get my older dog to settle down, because he can't really see or hear, so he doesn't always know what's going on. And if I want him to settle down, I can wrap him in this and he'll go right off to sleep. But, and I love it too. I might have to sit it here on my legs now. Again, alpaca. Can't go wrong. And then this one is a blanket that I designed. And I named it the kitchen sink blanket because it has everything in it but the kitchen sink, which is a saying around here. I don't know if that's universal or not. And I did it because I was bored one day and I wanted to use up a bunch of different yarns I had sitting on the shelf, and I wanted to do a bunch of different stitches. And so I cast on so many, and then I just started knitting, and when I got bored I would do something else. And it became this design. So I wrote it up, and then this is not the first. I've done a lot of these, like 5 or something. And this one I did in my Hoosier stripes here. Our basketball team is known for wearing, they're called the candy stripes, so they're white and red striped pants. And so I did the candy stripe as my colors here. And I actually used some leftover of this cream, actually, is that lace pattern that you see right there on screen. And in the original design of this, in the pattern, there's actually a loop stitch here that you can do. But if you don't want to do that, you can replace it with the basket, because the basket's repeated somewhere in here too. And I just used up different weights of yarn. I think it was done on like a 10.5 or an 11 size needle. And you just do whatever you have and use up leftovers, or if you have just one skein of something. I have all different weights in here. I have chunky all the way down to sport weight. So it's really fun to do. And I really like that one. That one usually gets a lot of use in February too, because it's kind of Valentine colors. And then my most recent one is a crocheted one, and this pattern is called Groovy Gan, so you can get that on Ravelry. And I made it all out of vintage, Broca vintage worsted, and you'll see why it's groovy. So it's kind of like, you know, the 70s or Scooby-Doo, or it's just really bright and cheerful. And I actually made this one this past I don't know if it was January and February, I think. I was recuperating from my surgery, so I couldn't really move very much, and I didn't have much energy. So I laid around, propped up, and crocheted this Afghan. And it was bright and cheerful, and it kind of helped bring me out of my funk a little bit. So it was a lot of fun to do. And this one kind of goes with, I have a bright colored bedspread in our guest room, so I like to keep that one in this room for our guests too. But when it gets really cold in the winter, pretty much all of these blankets end up in the master bedroom. So, let's see. I'm looking down at my notes to see if there was anything else I was going to share with you guys today. I did start a thread on the Ravelry, BrownieKnits Revelry board, talking about the block blanket along. So if you want more details, it's up there, and as I get more designed, I'll put more details in there too. And if you have any questions, feel free to post there and I can address that. And I had a great time at the meet and greet, designer meet and greet at Zionsville. And my classes are going to be on November 15th. We're going to do the flossy hat in one class and the slouchy honey hat or the button-up honey cow in the other class. So if you're local to the Indianapolis area and want to sign up, they have a few spots available. So you can give the shop, the Village Yarn Shop, a call to do that. And then if you want to register for one of the podcast giveaways for episode what will be 4, go up to the Ravelry, BrownieKnits Revelry board, join our group, and comment in the introductions, and that will register you for our giveaways. And this time our giveaway recipient is going to receive this skein of Sweet Georgia. Sweet Georgia yarns are fabulous. If you haven't knitted with them, you should. This colorway, okay, this is her BFL sock, so it's 80% superwash blue face Leicester wool, 20% nylon, and this is called Midnight Garden, and it's gorgeous. So, drum roll, and the winner is, congratulations! I hope you're excited to get this. I'll private message you to get your address and get this out in the post to you. So if you want to register for our future giveaway, go up, join our Ravelry board, and introduce yourself in the introductions thread. I also started a thread, what do you want Santa to bring? Right about this time, Patrick always says, what do you want for Christmas? And I always say, I don't know. So I thought, well, this year I was going to see what other people were asking for and see if there's something that, just really, really want that for Christmas. So if there's something you really want for Christmas, post in that thread. Let us know what you want. I think that's everything. I feel like I talked a mile a minute this time. And if you do happen to know somebody who has, after you look at neuroendocrine stuff, if you have somebody that you think is showing symptoms or might be misdiagnosed with something else and might have something like a tumor like this going on, and you want to ask me questions, feel free to private message me in Ravelry. Some of the symptoms, well, a lot of the symptoms are things you would have if you had the flu, or things you would have if you do have IBS or Crohn's. One of the symptoms that I had and still have, I get really, really hot. And for a long time I thought I had rosacea because I would get really red. And I don't. After they took out the tumor, that went away. And as the other ones are building back up, it comes and goes. But yeah, I'll get really, it's not exactly a hot flash, but it's just more of like really hot, and my face gets red, and I just feel like anxious and just like and so that's one of the main things that I had. But there are other symptoms too. But if you have somebody that you know, or you have symptoms and you just want to make sure that it's not that, or you just want to ask questions, I'm not an expert by any means, but I'd be happy to share my story and send you some website links where you can come across some experts in the field. So that's it. So hopefully there was some fun stuff in here. And I will talk to you later. Happy knitting!